I'm Colleen Joseph with Anne Arundel County Recreation and Parks. I'm the Chief of Marketing, Events, and Facilities Scheduling. So mostly here today I'm going to talk to you about the facility scheduling part of my division because that's what we deal with the schools. It is my least favorite part of my job, but the most time consuming. So my background is in marketing and events, but when this division was created, because most of the events take place at our facilities in the parks or the schools, and so I took over that part of the division too, and I'm happy to tell you here we have a lot of improvements coming to that part of the division, and we work with so many of you at the schools on a daily basis. I was really happy to be invited to be here today. So as Bill said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about our memorandum of understanding with the schools, but I also want to tell you a little bit about how people are accredited and how they become permitted, and hope that it will give you a better understanding of how we work together, Recreation and Parks and the Board of Ed. So this is our mission statement, and I took a little bit, can you guys hear me if I step back a little bit? Okay. This is our mission statement for the Department of Recreation and Parks, and so the first couple of slides I'm just going to brag on our department a little bit because we just are a very diverse department. People think that it's recreation and sports, and we do a lot more. This is kind of, our director calls this our org chart for dummies, and it kind of breaks down everything that we do. And you see that we have recreation and parks, but we also do school-age childcare, which we have in 34 Anne Arundel County public schools. We do golf courses, agricultural preservation, cultural resources, all kinds of programs. We do the marketing events. So it is a really diverse department. I've been there 5.5 years, and I say this, which is a good thing, I learn something new every day. Some of our park highlights are that we have a lot of natural resources, award-winning. We have 2 swim centers, 2 rec centers, the golf courses. We've recently started opening public access to, we are the county in Maryland that has the largest amount of shoreline, but with the least public access. So we've started opening up public access for kayak and canoe type launches. And I'm proud to say we'll have our first county-owned 2-lane boat ramp at Fort Smallwood opening next spring. So that's very exciting. And the new county executive is looking to put more boat launches in and give the citizens more access. So very busy. We have 96 programs. We have 300,000 participants in our sports a year. And you know that a lot of them are at your schools. The child care I mentioned. Our office, when you don't get a response from me or Mandy or Kurt in the facility scheduling office, we process about 6,500 permits a year in the facility scheduling office, and I have 3 staff. So, and this is just a little bit about what we do in the marketing events. We do all the marketing, the PR. I'm the Board of Ed liaison for Recreation and Parks. I'm the public information officer for our department. We do our website and lots of other marketing and events things. Also, we accredited all the organizations and schedule them at our parks. And so we schedule them at about 70 of our county parks and 119 of your schools. So that's a lot of facilities. And at each facility, as you know, at the schools, we don't just schedule the fields, we schedule the turf, the fields, the gym, the cafeteria, the music room, whatever the citizens ask for. And at our parks, we schedule the fields, pavilions, and of course at our regional parks, we have visitor centers and things like that. So it's a very busy office. We have a memorandum of agreement with the Board of Education that is renewed annually in July. And I have a copy of it here if anybody wants to see, but I promise you if you're not an attorney, it's just a lot of legal stuff. And it basically boils down to that Recreation and Parks, or the county, has an understanding, a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Ed that allows Recreation and Parks to use the public school facilities when the schools are not using them, and that we permit accredited organizations to use the facilities at the schools. This is renewed every year in July between our director and the CEO of Alex at the Board of Ed. And this CUOS means community use of schools. That's what that's for. And I did not put the whole agreement in there. If anybody wants to see it, I'll be glad to show them. We do recreation and parks. This is one of the reasons I wanted to come today, is because so that we would have a full understanding of, I've heard through the grapevine that not everybody at the schools completely understands what the agreement is with recreation and parks, but we do pay to use the schools. We pay the Board of Education approximately $350,000 a year just for electricity. So we send, that's an annual bill that goes when the agreement is renewed annually. We pay for weekend custodial time. Most of you guys know that, that's schedule of schools. During the week, we do not pay for the custodians because they're there. But on the weekends, the custodians keep track of their time. They give it to the person at the school that manages that, and they're sent to us on a monthly basis. It's an enormous amount of money. They get paid about 4 times minimum wage to be there on the weekends, and with all the use that we have in the schools over the weekends, it adds up. So we do have, and we count on the custodians to let our people in on the weekends and stuff like that. Speaking a little bit about that, there is some talk going around, I'm sure you've heard about it at the Board of Ed, about us possibly having staff on site at the school starting in the fall for security purposes. As you know, I'm not proud of this, but some of our sports organizations are banging on doors to get in the evenings, and the custodian's not there, so we're trying to come up with a way to resolve that with the Board of Ed. The Rec and Parks has use of the schools from 5:30 p.m. To 10 p.m. on weekdays, and then all day on weekends. And so that's very important to know, because sometimes we have some conflicts, and I'm going to get to that later. And then the turf fields have a separate agreement, which I'll get to a little bit later. Our facilities office, we provide scheduling permits for all the organizations. As I mentioned before, the fields, the turfs, the rooms, the cafeterias, the gyms. As I said, 70 county field parks and 119 schools, 6,000 permits annually for 639 organizations, and most of you that deal with us know Kurt, Mandy, and Mark. This is a lot of information that is also in the blue books that you got, which the blue books that we handed out today, that Loretta handed out to you, this is what we give annually to our organizations that are accredited, that get permits through us. So it's more geared for our sports organizations and homeowners and scouts and people that use our facilities and your facilities. However, I thought it would be good to hand out to you today, because the first several pages cover how our facility, or how our, when I say our, I mean the Board of Ed and Recreation and Parks facilities are permitted, who gets to use them. And I was telling Clayton, I'm not sure that anybody has ever given you that information before, so I hope that you find it helpful. And also there's a fee schedule in there, and there's a schedule of when we do the permits. So I hope some of that you find helpful. A lot towards the back is going to be talking about the scheduling of the sports organizations and how they work with our department, and that won't be applicable, but I hope that that information in the beginning, and then at the back of the book there's all the contact information for our department, so that should be helpful too. So mostly for the organizational accreditation, I just copied it right out of that book. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, because we get a lot of calls that the schools get a request from somebody and they want to get a permit to use that school. So the schools know that Rec and Parks permits the people, so they send them to us. This happened this morning. It was perfect timing. It was 20 minutes before I had to leave, and I'm scrambling to make sure I don't have any typos in this PowerPoint, so if you find any, let me know so I can correct it before Loretta puts it online. But a lady called, and she was from a church, and she had called an elementary school and said she wanted to have her church service at the elementary school, and they told her to call Rec and Parks. Although we permit almost everybody, we do not permit churches. We do not permit the religious groups and churches. We will permit a religious group that maybe has a softball team and wants to use a field, but not that. So, there's some fine tuning, and again, I hope by me being here today will help us all have a clear understanding.
Who do they call That's church, who would they call?
The churches are actually scheduled by the school. And
I have to also get the final permission of the board.
right. So the lady kept asking me, well, how do I get it? And I was like, this is a Board of Education thing, which I don't have that full knowledge of. I said, call the school back and tell them, and they'll have to call the Board of Ed. But the groups that we do accredit, and when I say the accreditation, we're going to get to that a little bit so you understand. Athletic organizations, dance group, homeowners associations, the scouts. Most of you guys, especially the elementary schools, all have scouts using that. Commercial entities, but not meaning a commercial group that's coming in to use your school to make money, but let's say, like for example, we permit Northrop Grumman has a softball team. People like that. Religious groups engaged in athletic activities, and other groups, fraternities. We have the Coast Guard. There's a whole variety of people citizens that use our parks and your facilities at the schools for their meetings and things like that. We give them a good deal. They mostly are charged nothing. I mean, they're charged stuff for the fields, but community organizations like Scouts coming into the schools do not pay. And we figured out they come to us, why we're getting so many requests for that is because now libraries and churches and people have started to pay, and we're still free. So when they come to us for an accreditation, it's online, it's on our website under the facility scheduling tab, has a whole list of organizational accreditation criteria. They have to be in good standing. That means they can't owe the county any money. They can't have participated in a program and never paid for it, and so they have to be that. There's required forms that we ask them to fill out so we know more about their organization. We require the organizations to be nonprofit. They have to have insurance and liability. They do hold harmless for rec and parks and also the Board of Ed. They need to pick a primary scheduling area. We usually do it by feeder system. And they have to show that 75% or more of the people that are going to be in their organization are Anne Arundel County citizens. Their organizational bylaws, we show that they have a board in place so that they're professional, and we do an assessment of the community need. I have people come to me all the time that say, my 5-year-old wants to play lacrosse and there's no one for them. We want to start a new group. We can't possibly start a new group for everybody that wants to have a group. And matter of fact, right now, this is something I've been in charge of this division for almost 3 years, so it's taken this long to get here, but currently we're doing an audit. As I said before, we have 639 accredited organizations. It's crazy. So we are currently doing an audit where we sent out reaccreditation information to every organization. And in May, we will be spending 2 nights a week for the whole month, meeting with each organization by feeder system to look at their paperwork, make sure it's in order, make sure that they have minutes from their board, to just make sure everybody is complying to the standards that we set. Also, we've had a lot of organizations either grow or shrink or splinter. And when that happens, it makes it more difficult for us to schedule them because they've had internal conflicts where they don't want to be on the same field with somebody else. Well, I don't have time for that drama. So, we are encouraging groups to come together by feeder system. They would be stronger and they would get use of more facilities if they came together and into one organization or large organization. So we're actually doing this audit, and the whole idea behind that is so that we look at the organizations, we make sure that they're serving the people they need to serve. We don't need 15 organizations doing 5-year-old lacrosse. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to equitably distribute the fields and facilities at the schools according to their need. It's a huge job, and not everybody's happy about it, but it's the right thing to do. Some of the organizations that aren't eligible for accreditation are commercial enterprises or religious groups like we talked about. And a commercial enterprise, I mean like Bob's Karate, that comes to ABC Elementary School and says, I'll teach karate in your cafeteria for $80 a student. You take 40, we'll take 40. They're not allowed in the schools. They don't have background checks. And they often are going to use up locations that Rec and Park has already had programmed for their sports. So that is actually not a Rec and Park rule. That's a fairly new Board of Ed rule. So I can't talk too knowledgeably about that, but they are not supposed to be in there. The providers of tournaments, camps, and clinics, about 4 years ago, we had a lot of people at the schools, especially people involved in athletics, wanted to do camps. So everybody was doing individual camps. Coaches from some of our associations were doing camps, and it just got, people were running camps on county property, and of course they're getting paid for it. So the county decided to do an RFP. So we actually have Premier Sports runs all of our clinics and camps during the summer, so that it's all run through the county. Now, I find it all the time. I was at Broadneck Park one day with my sister's grandchildren, and I saw a guy teaching little tot soccer. So I went over and started asking like I was a mom. He said, "Oh yeah, it's great, we're here once a week." So I went back to the office and they did not have a permit. So it happens, people just go set up and do that, but we try to find out. And we also tell our organizations, if you see someone in the park that you don't think is supposed to be there, please let us know. So that goes the same with the schools. They can't just come set up on your field and start teaching, baseball training or something. They can't, they have to have a permit. And we don't use a lot of non-based county not out of the county-based organizations, because we have enough with our own citizens and we have a lack of facilities, so we try to provide for our citizens first. And I wanted to talk about tournaments a little bit, and that goes back to the turf fields because we use those a lot for tournaments. Part of my job is to bring in revenue generating events and tournaments that not only create revenue for Rec and Parks, but also provide economic impact for the county. So I do bring in a lot of tournaments, and we have those mostly at the high schools and our regional parks or our parks that have multiple fields. So the tournaments, sometimes they are commercial organization, but a lot of them have a nonprofit sector of their organization where they provide back to us by maybe providing a free clinic or something like that. And usually they're in sponsorship with Recreation and Parks. That's how we kind of keep a handle on them not going too crazy to bring too much in. And I work with those groups very closely. They have to come in 90 days before their event, show me their financial statement, explain everything that they're going to do. So when I know we have those big tournaments, especially at the high schools, I try to give the business managers and the ADs as much notice as possible that they're coming, so we avoid conflicts. Again, this is in your book. I just wanted to put there that some of the responsibilities of our facility scheduling, and I've kind of gone over a lot of this already. The schools obviously have priority at their school for school-based activities. Then Rec and Parks has the next priority. And we do sometimes have conflicts like with that the school might schedule somebody in the school that is not permitted. And we're going to get into this later about communication, but it's just really important that we know what's going on in the schools too, so that we don't put people there that cause a conflict or hardship for the school. Our permits for our sports organizations and community groups go out 3 times a year. All the cycles are listed in that blue book, and I'm sure you guys at the school know this because you'll get an influx of permit requests a couple times a year. And then throughout the year, we have various people that want to have a Relay for Life or some kind of event at the school, and they're looking for a quick turnaround time. So that's when we usually will call you and say, I know this is May and the event's in November, but could you look at your calendar? But the rest of all the sports, they go 3 times a year. And I know some of the schools get a bunch of them at once, so we appreciate your quick turnaround. Let's see. This is kind of our process. Again, this is something that the public doesn't really understand or know. We try to put it on our website. We're actually in the process of developing FAQs for our website specifically for facility scheduling, because we get so many requests from commercial groups and the public. They just want to know if they can have a birthday party on the field at, Broadneck Elementary School or something like that. And everything has to be permitted. It's for insurance and safety reasons. So when we get the permit request from the organizations, we send it to the schools. You guys get to approve or deny it. Then when we receive it back, we send it back to our organizations. So again, if you get requests from the public, send them our way. If they're from a church, keep them. So, and the turf fields, this is one of our conflicts. The turf fields do not have to be approved by the schools. The agreement with the turf field agreement, joint use agreement, which is separate from the memorandum of agreement that we talked about before. There's an addendum for the turf fields because they became later. But when the turf fields are put into the schools, it's a project that is funded by Program Open Space, the Board of Education, and Anne Arundel County. So it is a truly joint use agreement. So the schools get priority use of the turf fields for all school activities, naturally, all your sports and all that. Then, from 7 o'clock on weekdays, Recreation and Parks has the turf fields. From 10 o'clock on Saturday mornings on, Recreation and Parks has the turf fields, and all day Sunday. We don't have to get approval from the schools. So we often schedule our leagues and tournaments on the turf fields. And then unfortunately, because, and like I said, if I schedule a tournament, I do try to let the business managers and ADs know ahead of time that this is coming. Usually the ADs know that our leagues are going to be there on a Saturday or Sunday or whatever it is. But in the 2.5, 3 years that I've been doing this, we've had some real doozy conflicts. And somebody's laughing back there. I know it's one of the business managers. So we usually always sort them out, but it's one of those, it's always a last minute thing that we find out like the day of or the day before. So I'm trying to figure out a way, and I'm open for suggestions of how we can, I'll be a better communicator to let it know. And sometimes it's not a problem. Like we'll have a tournament scheduled outside, but there'll be an indoor activity at the high school. That's pretty massive. So it's not the space, but it's the parking issue. So there is a misunderstanding though, because we do have use of the turf field. So it is good for us to communicate about that. When we do have the turf fields, we have turf monitors, paid Recreation and Parks staff. And it is their jobs to make sure that everything is going well, the bathrooms and facilities are clean, the goals are in place. We do have a new fee structure coming. I didn't talk about this a little bit. The fees are all in that blue book, and that blue book is online if I didn't mention that before. It's on our website. When we use facilities at the school, half of the cost that the people pay, Rec and Parks, is given back to the Board of Education. So one of the things that we've talked about internally in our department and with Clayton and with Alex is it would be beneficial to the schools to receive some of this funding. And maybe that would be more encouragement to your staff to accommodate Recreation and Parks. So this has been in the process, and it still is, but I think when we finalize the turf field agreement for the new fiscal year, this will go into effect. So instead of it being a 50-50 split, the Board of Ed will get 40, the Rec and Parks will get 40, and 20% of the proceeds from tournaments and events will go back to the host school. It's more accounting for us, but it's fair, and it gives you guys some encouragement, and we'll go back into helping make the school improvements. So I know Clayton is a big supporter, I am too, and we're pushing hard to get that passed. We do talk about this internally in our office all the time, that even though we have some struggles, it really is a great relationship. We have a wonderful relationship with the Board of Ed, and we would not be able to provide all the programs, activities, and sports that we do at Rec and Parks without the use of the Anne Arundel County Public School facilities, and I have actually gone to other recreation and parks departments in Maryland and Delaware and spoke at the Maryland Recreation and Parks conference on this. We're one of the few counties that does this. A lot of the other counties' recreation and parks have their own recreation facilities, and nobody has 119 facilities to use. So we're very fortunate, and I am very impressed with the superintendent and the county representatives and the Board of Ed representatives and how much they communicate when there's projects and new construction and everything. It really is a good relationship. We're so appreciative of the support. And we try to, in our meetings with our sports organizations, we usually meet with them. We do coaches clinics 2-3 times a year. Once every 2 years, we do a state of the department with all the sports organizations. And then, of course, we're doing this accreditation audit that I spoke of before. We always try to tell our sports organizations their use in your schools is a privilege. And they're representing recreation and parks when they're there. And they are to treat their personnel and the property of Anne Arundel County Public Schools with respect. And if they don't, please let me know. And let me know before it gets to the point where I get Sunday morning emails from principals. I never want to see this group in my school again, and I don't blame them. But let me know before it escalates. And I have been known to go to our groups and just say, you're out. You're out. You're on a 2-week hiatus because your people didn't know how to behave. And sometimes we've kicked them out for good. It usually fixes the problem. So I didn't like this slide too much because it's challenges and conflicts, and I don't want this to be negative, but you know, it's the elephant in the living room and all of that stuff. The turnaround time with permit requests. They go to the schools, and I completely understand because I gave you the big list of everything else my division is responsible for. I'm sure they come across the facts and the people at the school are like, oh my God, there's a wreck of parks permits again. But we do ask you to try to turn them around as quickly as possible. In the sports seasons doesn't seem to be a problem, but where we do have some issues is when we have people that are planning long-term events, like I used Relay for Life, for example, or there's organizations that want to do a craft show, and they want to plan it 6, 9, 10 months in advance. I think in the past sometimes our office has been guilty of this too, to waiting till the last minute. Those people will beat me up every day, email, phone, any way they can get a hold of me, because they want to plan their event. So we try to put a note on there that says, you know, please let us know as soon as possible. So again, if you have any questions ever about that, please call our office. I talked a little bit about this. The main conflict that we have is when Rec and Parks doesn't know about a school-sponsored event and we have something happening there. Our people show up to play basketball in the gym and there's a cheerleading event going on or something like that. You are not required to tell us about school-sponsored events, but it sure does help. Especially if there's going to be a big event here, a big event that may be bringing a lot of people to your school on a weekend or a nighttime. Like I said before, we've had conflicts with tournaments. We had one recently where we had a tournament and the day of, I got a call from my people that said that there was a big activity going on at the high school that we weren't aware of. And I'm going to tell you that it was a problem because it was a county-sponsored event and the county didn't even get a permit from Recreation and Parks. So, you know, I made a few phone calls, but if you know that there's a big activity like that that's going to use a lot of space, and, you know, check with us. And the denial of permit request, sometimes we just get them denied. No explanation. And I think sometimes there's just not a communication between Recreation and Parks or the Board of Ed or whatever. They're denied. I recently had at a high school that I'm having a lacrosse tournament in June, and the high school denied it because the fields were going to be under construction. I think there's 6 or 7 fields at that high school. One's going to be under construction. I can still have the lacrosse tournament there. and we can just work around that. So sometimes it's just a matter of, and a lot of times our rec and parks maintenance people do deal with the school maintenance people on the field, so we have a little bit of an inside scoop. So I try to call the AD or the business manager and work it out. Some of the conflicts are our own sports organizations. I'm going to say that they don't behave appropriately. We already talked about that. So please let me know so that I can contact their president or their commissioner, because we do deny permits to groups that do not participate in like they're supposed to in the school facilities and in our park facilities. And I think, I hope I've done a good job today of explaining about exactly who can be permitted at the schools and who cannot. So, and the communication and solutions. Just notify us of all major events if you can. Let us know that you have a problem with the organization. If you have questions, please call or email. And we do have a new registration system coming. I was hoping to tell you today that it was up and running. We were supposed to have a March 1st live date, then it was a June 1st live date, and now we're looking at an August 1st live date. And part of the reason that it's been pushed off is interesting, and ActiveNet, if any of you have heard of that, is the company that we're using. It's a cloud-based registration system, which we had to go to because on the days that we open our summer camp registration and our registration for school-age childcare, we would crash the server. The county server would crash. So we're going to a cloud-based registration system. And facility scheduling will be the first people to do that, the first division to use the new registration system. At that point, part of the reason that we've been delayed is because we had to enter every facility into a new database. And the registration people, ActiveNet, thought that that would just be the parks and schools, but they didn't realize we have to enter every room, every cafeteria, every gym, every music room, every media room, every field. So we have over 2,800 entries that our people have had to do, and it slowed us down, but when we get it going, it's going to be awesome. And you guys will be able, citizens, and you guys will be able to go in and look at it and pick up, Broadneck Elementary School or whatever, and you'll be able to see exactly what we have scheduled in there and what time. And what I'm working on now is to get the Board of Ed a code so that you guys can go in there and put your events in there that will help us. So I'm working on that. I think that'll be really good. It's county government, so, take a deep breath. So the contacts for the facility scheduling office, I know a lot of you know Mandy, and if you know her, she's at home on maternity leave with a cute little baby girl. So, and Kurt and Mark Oliver. Then Carolyn Ryan is, she's our marketing events person, but she also fields facility scheduling. And notice how I put myself last. So you can always contact me, but usually I'm actually in a separate office from them. If it's a question about who's in the gym tonight at 5:30, seriously, you're really better off to talk to the first three, because they know it. And Mandy, if any of you have dealt with Mandy, she knows it off the top of her head. She's great. So thank you for inviting me here today. I was really excited for the opportunity so that we can have better communication, and I'm ready